Cancel culture. In one way or another, we all have heard of it. For those who are probably wondering what cancel culture is, it refers to the practice of calling out people or companies who have done or said something considered offensive. These call-outs have been performed in social media in a form of group shaming. Now, why do I think this is a problem? To start off, I would consider this hypocritical. But before I move on to that, I want to address the fact that people are politically correct. But I don't want to address it on this podcast because that's for another topic that I'm currently working on. So why do I think it's hypocritical? Okay, to start off, cancel culture is a practice that is 100% subjective and not objective. Now, you're probably wondering why. Well, that's because that's a point of view that's based or influenced by our personal feelings or opinions. We're biased in thinking what we want to think or what we feel that it's good or bad based on our own personal experience or beliefs. Unlike being objective, which are things that are 100% facts. For example, in terms of commercial success, Pokemon is better than Digimon. But subjectively speaking, I would rather say that Digimon has better products, merchandise, storyline, characters, and world building. And that's a biased opinion based on my point of view and own personal experience with their products. Getting back on track, it's hypocritical because people will be selective on what they choose to go ahead and cancel. Such as people going all the way to canceling someone for making a homophobic joke but not going against someone making a fat-shaming remark, since apparently some people are exempt from being prosecuted. I remember that there was a time where we used to call kids with big ears Dumbo. The irony being that Dumbo was created as a character to teach people how to be tolerant and accept everyone's differences. And before anyone hearing this calls me out, I am in no way defending this type of context. I'm just putting things into perspective. I think that it's safe to say that we all have seen a movie, a comment, a meme, or something that by today's standards, people would say that that would make it because it's not politically correct. Such example is Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. And like I said at the beginning, we're not going to discuss that topic on this podcast, but on a different. Going back to the previous point, said perspective being that at a point in time, it was accepted by society to do certain conducts, like nicknaming people. From where I come from, it was a very common practice to go ahead and nickname someone. People with Asian characteristics were often called Chinatown, or Chino in Spanish. If light went out and it was pretty dark, we would often make jokes about our black friend and not being able to find them in the dark. I always found it very demeaning to go ahead and call someone Negrito, or Picanini in English. Maybe it's just me, but I would rather go ahead and call someone black than Picanini, and there's nothing wrong with calling someone black as there is no discrimination in doing so. There is one social media in particular where people thrive in finding offensive comments from the past and shaming people for past behaviors. Their primary goal is to dwell on hate by calling out people publicly even though they have changed from past behaviors. I wouldn't mind people calling people like Amber Heard, who has shown a certain degree of misandry, but it's not limited to just that type of people. Nowadays, everyone gets called out upon on social media for offensive behavior that they have shown in the past. I'm not going to defend anyone that has done or said something offensive, but let's talk about James Gunn. The guy was fired from Marvel Studios due to past comments he made on Twitter. I won't mention these comments if I ever get monetized. I cannot disclose that type of things in here, but if you look it up, you will understand of what I'm talking about. So basically, James Gunn did some comments in the past. Marvel did not like these comments and decided to fire him. However, DC gave him the opportunity to make a clean state. He apologized, he was sorry for those comments, and now he's directing Suicide Squad movie that's going to come out later on this year. There's this singer that when he first came out, he did some songs that were quite misogynistic. That was back in 2015, 2014, somewhere around that time. There was a motion back in the day to go ahead and cancel him out because of that type of content that he made. I'm not sure if he has changed or what's the deal with him, but he has canceled concerts in order to support political movements in his country. He has fought to change gender stereotypes, like guys not being able to paint their fingernails or using dresses, or stuff like that. He also fights for the rights of LGBT community. What I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't give two flying squirrels about him, but there are people that go all the way to go ahead and cancel characters like Speedy Gonzalez for being racist, or Dr. Seuss, when they're just characters that are aimed for kids. Basically, the point of this podcast was to take a look at what cancel culture is and why do I think it's hypocritical. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand the importance of making a change for a better world, but I don't think that that's really the best way to do it by canceling part of our history as a human race. There are better ways to go ahead and achieve that, but not canceling someone just because they don't think like you think. So what does that have to say about you? Just because someone doesn't think like you, that makes you entitled to go ahead and cancel them out? I sincerely think that people will get offended by things they don't actually feel offended just to be politically correct. And truth is, no one is perfect. None of us have the absolute truth. None of us is free of committing acts or making comments that do not offend the susceptibility of others. And my biggest issue with cancel culture is that it denies the existence of the social construct in which our society has been built throughout the years. You cannot go ahead and cancel out someone just because you're not okay with it. And I'm not just talking about freedom of speech. It's about the history and the moments in history in which some events were present. Like I've been saying throughout the podcast, I'm not agreeing with conducts that have been performed in the past, but they are part of our human history and what has made the society in which we live today. Thank you very much for making it all the way here. I know that I said that I was going to upload the Titans video, but these videos do take a lot of time to animate, especially if it's just one person animating it. So just bear with me. I promise that I'll be releasing that video as soon as possible. Just give me some time to do it. Also, I'll be leaving the links for my equipment and the Digimon merchandise in case you're interested in purchasing it down below on the description box. You can go ahead and help me out by liking, comment, and subscribing to the channel to give me a hand with the YouTube algorithm. So, without any further ado, see you next time. Don't forget to breathe.